While working on the first set of these scripts, I found myself burdened with life. My son Daniel had just taken a spill over some wet leaves and severely sprained his ankle, which left more work around the house to be picked up and him to be watched after. Just after that, my wife became very ill and lost all the energy that she previously had, leaving her napping throughout the day. The next day was election day, which kept me up early until the next morning. The next day, I was lethargic and didn't want to move from my spot in the bed. And while waiting is a biblical principle, as we learned about in the story of Noah, inaction is not. It's true that life comes in seasons, but we always must be ready to do the work the Lord has for us. In this case, I couldn't seem to motivate myself in order to accomplish the work that I know needed to be done. Within the writings of Genesis, we're introduced to Abram for the first time. Abram is this man from Ur of the Chaldees. We know his father not only worshipped other gods, but made his living by building idols dedicated to these other Mesopotamian gods. It is assumed that between the events of the Tower of Babel and where we pick up here in the story, that Abram and his family would have accepted the religion of those around them and wouldn't have had any idea about this God that brought Noah safely from the flood. However, while not knowing this God, once hearing from this God and his instructions, Abram uproots all of his family and willingly obeys and worships this God. It must have been incredibly difficult for not only Abram to leave, but also Abram's father to pick up and leave his only source of income and everything they knew to follow Abram into the wilderness of Canaan. Abram's wife and nephew would also follow suit, leaving everyone that they knew and everything that they knew behind in order to set out on adventure from the instructions that this voice that Abram had heard. Abram's choice proves to be the right one, as this God shows himself faithful to Abram time and time again. And the fact that this God shows himself faithful to Abram just bolsters Abram's faith. When we compare this faith and this action to our circumstances today, it's not even close to what most of us have to go through in order to follow God. Most of us are unwilling to wake up early on Sundays or travel more than a few minutes to attend church. But Abram and his family were willing to give up everything in order to follow the instructions of a God that they were not familiar with. I'm sure I'm not the only one that struggles with lethargy. In fact, I would imagine that most pastors and most people in ministry struggle with a lack of motivation from time to time, if they're being honest. We all fall into the weakness of the flesh and only want to look out for our own self-interest from time to time. However, this isn't how we were designed to operate, even if it is incredibly convenient at times. Next time you find yourself not wanting to talk to the person that God is leading you to speak to, or when you don't want to go and gather with other believers because you're too worn out and too tired, or when you don't want to proclaim your faith in a group of non-believers that you may or may not know that you're not alone. But look at the example that Abram sets when he's willing to leave everything and go and follow this caring and loving God that he didn't know. Please continue along with me as we look at Scripture in a contextual point of view. May God keep you and bless you. Really quick, before you go, let me explain why I felt led to start this channel. When talking to Pilate, Jesus said, "I have come into the world to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." Pilate responds by asking, "What is the truth?" It's evident that a lot of people are still asking this question almost 2,000 years later. And while we live in an amazing time with the wealth of the world's knowledge available in the palm of our hands, there's often too much information, leaving people unable to process what's true and what's not true. Paul describes such times in this way when he writes his second letter to his disciple Timothy: "Always learning and never able to arrive at a knowledge of the truth." There are several who expound on what truth is, but often they are misguided, or they are malice in their intent, or they're being intellectually dishonest. My hope is that I am able to provide evidence for why the scriptural narrative is true, a contextual and practical explanation of the principles found in its writings, and a defense for other believers. As Peter explains, you should always be prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. If you find value in this channel as I do, there are a few ways you can help, both by gifting and without spending any money. First, react and interact with these videos wherever you're watching from. This greatly helps the channel be seen by others and new people. Next, please share this content with others you feel may benefit from the information found here. Also, please subscribe to this channel on all social media. And finally, if you feel led to, and if you have the means to, please consider giving to this channel through the outlets previously mentioned, or the channel's Patreon. All these links are going to be in the video description. Thank you for watching, and may God keep you and bless you.